In a world where hearts carry scars unseen, where every whispered secret can echo through a lifetime, stay with us. Subscribe now to uncover the truths hidden in silence. You've heard the rumors, the hushed conversations, the tears brushed away in quiet corners. Now brace yourself, for Chang Wook steps forward, bearing the weight of Hyun's untold sorrow. He speaks in soft tones that tremble at the edges, as though the very act of telling is painful in itself. The memory comes flooding back. Hyun, bright as the morning sun in their youth, laughter like a melody drifting effortlessly through corridors. But laughter, like fragile glass, can shatter in an instant. Chang Wook recalls the day the brightness dimmed, a phone call unreturned, a message left in silence, a promise broken before it was even spoken. He pauses, and you feel the weight of his breath, the catch in his voice as he remembers how she tried to shove her pain into a neat box labeled unspoken, how she wore a smile stitched over wounds that no one could see. He tells of the nights she lay awake, heart pounding, remembering the moment when her world fractured, betrayal not by strangers, but by people she trusted so deeply. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was ordinary betrayal, words flung carelessly, faith crushed under the weight of indifference. She began shutting the world out. Pleasant greetings became burdensome. Her eyes, once wide and shimmering with curiosity, retreated behind a veil of quiet distance. There was a day, Chang Wook recounts it, when Hyun, sitting beside a rain-drenched window, spoke of feeling as though she no longer belonged anywhere. He remembers the tremor in her voice, the way her fingers twisted in her lap, and how he wanted to reach out but froze, paralyzed by the ache he saw in her. Over time, her pain became a silent shadow trailing her every step. A good morning turned hollow, a meal swallowed in solitude tasted of ash. There were nights when she dialed numbers she knew wouldn't answer, voice cracking as she whispered apologies she believed were hers to bear. "I am sorry for being a burden," she'd say. "Let me fade away, let me become nothing." It was then that Chang Wook realized something atrocious about silence. It can feel safer than speaking, safer than admitting how badly one is hurting. And so she bore it alone, quietly crumbling in the spaces between words. He speaks of a photograph she once showed him, a smiling group of friends at the beach, sunlight dancing across their faces. But if you looked closely, looked with his eyes, you'd see her standing a fraction behind, shoulders hunched, eyes empty. He tells us how he carried that image in his mind, replaying it night after night, searching for when exactly the light in her eyes flickered out. He brings us back to a memory of laughter, fractured as it was. Hyun trying to joke about heartbreak, laughter strained as a string. About to snap, as she said, "I'm fine now." And Chang Wook remembers how her words landed and fractured. There was a weight in "fine" that said everything without saying anything at all. He describes how she began to disappear. Not in body, they still shared coffees, exchanged texts, but in spirit. Her messages became terse. When he called, her voice was cautious, distant. They once planned a trip, then she cancelled, saying she wasn't in the right headspace. And again. And again. Each time, he felt the distance grow, a chasm widening where once connection stood. Then came the day he found her sobbing, so quietly it sounded like sobbing should sound, a broken melody of hurt that finally found a way to be. He rushed to her side, helpless, and listened as she spoke broken truths, the guilt, the shame, the belief that she deserved the pain, that no one would care enough to hold her if they really knew. He held her hand, awkwardly, as though afraid it might break under her sorrow. In the days that followed, Chang Wook narrates how he became both witness and participant in her slow, painful reclamation. Not heroic, not instant, just small acts, bringing her soup when she couldn't stomach food, telling her she was allowed not to be okay, letting her bleed her anguish without trying to sew it shut. He tells us the painful truth: healing isn't a destination, it's crawling forward, one trembling footstep at a time. Hyun's healing began in class, when she raised her hand again, at open mic nights, where she performed lines that trembled and cracked but still reached out. He remembers the first time she looked in the mirror and smiled at her own reflection without guilt. It was subtle, like sunrise seeping through clouds after a storm, but unmistakable. He shares the work she did. She wrote her story in small notebooks, lines at first scrawled with tears, later with resolve. She learned to say, "I hurt," without apology. To reject the idea that sorrow was a flaw, to embrace that vulnerability could be strength, if only she let herself feel it. There are moments when his voice breaks, and even though he carries the narration, you feel her pain as though it's etched on your own skin, sharp, bruising. He recounts the first time she laughed freely again, not the brittle laughter of someone trying to pretend, but the warm, genuine bloom of joy. He was sitting across from her, and he heard it before he recognized it, laughter that didn't tremble, mirth that didn't hide. But sunset is never far from darkness. He tells of the nights she still sits awake, just sometimes, when memory slips in unannounced. She still writes in those notebooks, not to purge, but to bear witness. And on those nights, Chang Wook stays close, a silent vigil, reminding her she's not alone, reminding himself that love is a quiet act of showing up. He says the truth about Hyun's painful past isn't cringe or sensational, it's human. It's the truth that sometimes heartbreak isn't an event, but a slowly widening fracture. That pain isn't a moment, it's often an echo, a shadow growing longer. But truth, when shared, can be the chisel that cracks the stone of despair. He speaks of the fragility of trust. How once broken, it demands gentleness to rebuild. And he describes how she learned gentleness, with herself, with others. He remembers her telling him, softly, "I thought I would always carry this weight. And later, I still feel the ache, but it doesn't define me anymore." He doesn't tell you it's over. He tells you it's ongoing. That every day is a choice, to move forward, to keep speaking, to keep showing up. Healing doesn't sparkle in fairy tale crescendo, it trudges, it stumbles, it persists. He says he's proud of her perseverance, proud of her courage to keep going when going felt impossible. The narrator's voice softens now, introspective. He invites you, the listener, to consider your own hidden wounds. To ask, what stories have I yet to tell? What truths have I locked in silence? And if Hyun can find small steps toward light, perhaps we all can. He closes with a thought, quiet but resonant: pain remembered can become wisdom. Heartache transformed can become empathy. And wounds that once whispered you're broken can, when tended, begin to murmur your healing. He pauses, and in that pause, you feel the echo of all unspoken truths, and the fragile possibility that telling them, sharing them, can be the first step toward healing. Stay with us, for the silent hearts, for the stories beneath the smiles. Let the truth be told, not just for Hyun, but for anyone who has ever wondered if their pain mattered. Because it does.